learning how to purl stitch grandma style. So, just continuing from my last video where we practiced the knit stitch, now we're going to practice the purl stitch. So I've got my left needle with all my stitches on it. I've got my yarn. I've got my needle here. So this is the purl stitch. We would put the needle this way. With the knit stitch, we entered the loop this way and went to the back. With the purl stitch, you do not do that. With the purl stitch, you take your needle and you go this way. You still make an X, and I use my left hand to hold both needles. Now this time, my yarn is in front, right here on this side. It's not back here, it's not under here. With the purl stitch, it's in front here. Because if we go back to the knit stitch where we do this, the yarn is really towards the back. Like if you practice a knit stitch, you see the yarn is in the back. So I'm gonna reverse that stitch so we can go back. Okay, so again, with the purl stitch, go this way. And bear with me, this is my first series of YouTube videos. So we're just trying our best to make a video, help a coworker learn how to knit, using the techniques that Grandma Mildred taught me because we love her so much. So purl stitch, we entered the loop this way, we made our X, we're holding the needles with our left hand, the yarn is in front. You're gonna wrap it around the front needle, the needle that was in our right hand. You're gonna wrap it around that needle. And again, use your index finger to help hold that yarn so that you don't lose it. So if you can see that first loop, you're gonna pull the needle under. And just watch it a few times so that you get a good feel for it. Now pull that stitch off the needle. Drop that stitch. Okay. You can tighten your string if you need to. So again, we'll practice some more purl stitches. Put the needle through, make an X, hold the needles with your left hand. Right hand grabs the yarn, wrap it around the front needle. Hold that yarn, pull the needle, so when you pull it, the only thing you're doing is going under that stitch currently on the needle, going behind the needle, and then pulling it off. And you have your new stitch. So I will just keep going. I hope I'm not going too fast, but once you practice it, this really is fun. You can make a lot of great projects using the purl stitch. Some common errors you might have made with the knit stitch, you can also do with the purl stitch. So for example, you just want to make sure you're only going under that one loop here. That's all you want. You don't want to like here I just went under another piece of string. Just watch where you're putting your needle and only grabbing that one stitch. And then again, you know, you can pull a little tight. Don't pull it so tight that you can't get your needles under those stitches the next time around, but you know, have a little tension on that yarn. And again, if you don't have your index finger here to help hold, that yarn might not come through the loop like it should, and you would just kind of lose it. So just be careful that when you wrap that yarn around, that your finger is helping hold that yarn on that needle. You're pulling it through. So I will just finish this row to show you what we do at the end. So this is our last purl stitch, and it looks like this. Now this left needle is empty. All of our stitches are now on the right needle. So again, same thing when we learn the knit stitch, just switch the needles. And now you're ready to start your next row. So with this little practice square that I made here, I knitted a whole row, and then I purled a whole row, and then went back and forth between knitting a row, purling a row. And that's how I got this pattern here, where it looks like this on one side and it looks like this on the other. So the one thing I want to point out is that if you notice, if you ever forget if you're supposed to knit or purl a row and you're lost in your pattern or project that you're doing, one thing you'll notice is like these little bumps here, like here, here, here. If you look at your knit row, it doesn't have that little bump right there. So that's a good reminder of this is a row you would knit, and this is a row that you would purl because of these little bumps. Now if you're only using the knit stitch, you would have these bumps on both sides because your project would have this look on both sides. So you would have these bumps on both sides if that's the only stitch you're using in your project. But once you start to use the purl stitch, you would have these bumps on the rows where you purl stitch, and then on the rows where you're knitting, you have this beautiful pattern here, and you don't have those bumps on the needle, on the stitches on the needle. I hope that makes sense. Those are things I remember my grandma teaching me and pointing out, and I remembered. And then in an earlier video, I said you'll have a lot of projects where it asks you to knit 2, purl 2. So let's say I knitted these 2, I purl these 2, I knit these 2, and I purl these 2, and I knit these 2. What would that look like? So if you look at the sweater that I knitted, it would look like this. Or any of the mittens. So the wrist on the mitten, it looks the same. So if you knit 2, purl 2, you can tell that these stitches were purled, these ones were knitted, and it makes it a little stretchy. So that's a knit 2, purl 2. So I've done videos now on the 3 basic things you need to know to knit. We learned how to cast on, we learned how to knit stitch, we learned how to purl stitch. Beyond that, there's a lot of other abbreviations you can learn in knitting. For example, you might see M1 for make one, you might see SSK for slip, slip, knit, you might see knit K2, TOG, knit 2 together. So you're gonna see a lot of other abbreviations when you make patterns. So if, for now I'm just doing the basic stitches, but if you need to learn more complicated ones, I'm happy to make more videos. But those are the basics, and have fun with your projects as a beginner. Thank you. Bye. Have a great day. Happy Mother's Day.